Hey guys, today I want to talk about breaking up the big banks. First, I'll give you a bit of history. During the Depression, a law called the Glass-Steagall Act was passed that, among other things, it made investment banks and deposit banks be separated. It said they couldn't be one institution. Now, this is important because deposits are insured by the federal government, by the FDIC. And if you allow these banks to be one, then a bank can use deposit money, which is insured, and use it to gamble on Wall Street, which is bad. In 1999, the Glass-Steagall Act was repealed by the Republican-controlled Congress, and it was signed by the Democrat Bill Clinton. And you see the result of that from the past 10 years. We've had these mega banks formed, like J.P. Morgan Chase. Look how many different names you have in there, J.P. Morgan and Chase. Big banks, Bank of America, Citigroup. And Citigroup brings me to why this topic is being brought up today. Former CEO of Citigroup, Sandy Weil, has come forth, I believe it was on CNBC, and said that the big banks need to be broken up. He thinks investment banking and deposit banking should be separated. He sees it as a competitive issue that these humongous banks are not able to operate properly, and it was just a wrong move. And for somebody like that, who is instrumental in forming the management system we have today in the banks, for him to come forward is a big deal. Another figure who has come forward is Neil Barofsky, who was the TARP watchdog under George W. Bush. TARP, of course, is the Wall Street bailout. That's the technical name for the Wall Street bailout. Now, to get into further why breaking up the big banks is a good idea, when these banks are allowed to get this big, they become a systemic risk. You've probably heard the term too big to fail. These banks were so big and they were spidered into so much of the economy that if they were allowed to go out of business, to fail during the 2008 financial crisis, it likely would have brought us into another Great Depression, and it would have just collapsed the economy. That is where separation of the banks is important. If we keep investment banking separated from deposit banking, they're less likely to become that big. Now, I personally believe to make this happen, we also need to cap the size of banks to just totally take out the possibility that they can become a systemic risk. Their size should be capped so they can grow, they can get to a good size, but they can't get so big to where if they go down, it will take the entire economy with them. These other guys don't necessarily go that far, but I believe that's necessary. We have had financial reform since the recession, the Dodd-Frank Act, but it was very weak and it was just gutted by lobbyists. And Dodd, who was a Democrat, just was owned by the banking sector, and it was toothless essentially. It didn't do a lot, and it's not going to prevent another financial crisis. Right now, if with the economy picks up, these banks are going to continue to grow in size, and we're going to face the same problems again in the future if something is not done to break them up. Let me know what you think. Is it a good idea to break up the big banks? Leave a comment or a video response, and if you like these videos, please subscribe.